Welcome to another Tuesday talk with Ruby Reese. My name is Chris and I'm co-founder of Ruby Reese and dognutrition.ie, and today I will be your host. For you who listen to this podcast for a longer time or regularly, you perhaps noticed it by now. I'm not the normal host of this podcast. This is one of these episodes where we make something a little bit different out of a reason. It is our first birthday. So this is the birthday episode for 52 episodes. And of course, Killian is here as well, but today on the other side of the microphone. So he will be the guest and I will interview him for a change. Hello, Killian. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, and thank you very much for having me. I suppose for me, it's a bit of a step back in time to be sitting here in a different room, one that lots of you will remember from the history pre-podcast. And it's really, really exciting to be sitting on this side. And I don't have the usual tech around me, and I don't have the usual kind of studio background that I'm used to now after the 52 episodes. Of having in my background. So I'm back to the roots at the moment.
Yeah, we gave you a little bit of a break, a nice little chair for those who can't see it. He's sitting in a lovely chair and relaxing a little bit for this episode, and I'm doing the work. 1 year of Tuesday talks with Ruby Reese. How does it feel?
Very good. Yeah, I think I didn't expect it to be a 50-second episode already, but here we are.
Yeah, 50-second episodes. And I calculated it out, actually. It is over 2,212 minutes to listen to, which is equaling 36, nearly 37 hours, 1.5 days. So yeah. If this is your first episode, Jesus.
You have a lot of chit chat to catch up on.
It will bring you, like, there are like audiobooks which are shorter, definitely.
There's a lot of audiobooks that are shorter than 37 hours.
Yeah, fascinating. No, it was a great year. I mean, people perhaps don't know it so much. I'm always in the background as well, so I'm producing the things. But Killian is, of course, doing the main work and interviewing people, finding the people, and all this. But let's start at the beginning. How does it all started? Let us know. Tell people who don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So I suppose if you've only just started listening to the podcasts in somewhere along the last 51 episodes, you're very welcome along the journey. But some of you will remember that we actually weren't doing this as a podcast format. We started this off as lives on Instagram Live. And I was sitting in this seat that I'm sitting in now. And every single week, or almost every single week, sometimes there were technical things and scheduling things that came up. But almost every single week for a year, I think, or over a year, we did lives on every Tuesday evening. And it was an incredible time, but it was also quite stressful for everyone involved, really, because you just jump onto a live and anything can happen. So we had live audience, which was amazing because you get, like, it made my job so much easier. Sometimes loads of people asked questions, loads of people got involved, loads of people got really supportive with their comments as well in the lives. Really, really amazing time. However, lives are also, you're dealing with technology, and if you're relying on technology to work, it probably won't. So we had loads of times where the connection broke, people had problems accessing the record or accessing the session. All sorts of things happened. It was wild times. So we decided then to formalize the format a little bit and move towards a podcast, which is pre-recorded, and therefore, even if there was power outages or the internet decided to drop or the technology decided to act up, we could still reschedule the recording session and make it happen and get the episode out.
Exactly. Yeah, this was, like, remembering these times, they were really interesting, even to edit it afterwards. It was not that easy. It's definitely way easier now. So I mean, still 1 year. What did you learned? Like, tell me three things you learned from this podcast.
So I suppose there's loads of things that we've learned, and I think it's like the podcast itself, and that's not credit to me or to you. It's more credit to the guests that we've had on. It's like an encyclopedia, and it's still growing, and there's more chapters to come for sure. But
Absolutely.
it's there's a huge breadth of knowledge. But I think overall, there a couple of things are clear to me now after doing a full year of pushing out a podcast every single week. The first is that like everybody has a story to tell. So everybody has a perspective. Everybody has real value to share. And we've had an absolute pleasure of even covering some topics where there's a little bit of crossover, a little bit of, I don't want to say repetition because that's not where I'm going, but a different flavor of a similar topic. I think there's so many layers to a lot of the topics in and around our dogs that like I think everybody has a story to tell, and everybody deserves to have a platform to listen. So if you have a topic you'd like to talk about, get in touch with us, and we'll see what we can do. Another thing is that it all and it's related. They all kind of all the topics kind of hang together. So it's very, I suppose, in a definition perspective, it's very easy to draw a line around each topic and say, this topic is about this and this topic is about that. But once you start getting further down than just a very kind of top level look at it, you start getting into the detail, you realize there's an awful lot more that comes into it. And of course, let's say you're talking about pain in dogs. There's other things going on in that dog's life as well. For example, they could be in the puppy phase. They could be in the teenage phase. Maybe rescue is a topic. And though each and every one of those topics could be a separate podcast topic, but there's definitely overlap because it's not just one topic on its own.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's true.
And I'm sure you've seen that as well, have you? Like with the topics that there's overlap, but it's also like it just adds another layer to the onion, really, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and this is so interesting that everything is kind of connected and it makes then sense. And this is so that makes the whole thing so important that everyone gets the other angle, an angle from another professional. Like if a trainer listens to this podcast now, he gets the angle from a nutritionist or a vet, and the other way around. And perhaps we're all learning and all getting better while understanding these connections.
Definitely, exactly, because nothing happens in isolation. It's all connected. So, without going too meta on the whole thing, and I think one of the last things that I've also that's really stood out to me, and I've repeated it on almost every single episode, is that like we need to set our dogs up for success, and to do that, we need to set ourselves up for success too. So, breaking things down into their simplest form and just saying, what's the easiest way for us to take a step in the right direction for the situation that we have? And it just comes up everywhere. And I think we overcomplicate things. And I know sometimes topics, we're passionate about them. We've so much context and detail, but we can also flood people with information, and then they get lost and say, "Oh, but I don't understand." I don't understand because there's just too much going on. So I think sometimes we just need to set ourselves up for success and say, "What's the next easiest step in the right direction?" And I think that's something that comes up all the time.
Absolutely, with nearly every topic. Yeah. And talking about all the different topics, I mean, we had 52 different ones. Okay, we had a few which were like
Similar.
double episodes actually. Part one, part two. But like the topic diversity we had. Let's break this down a little bit in three categories and talk a little bit about these ones. So let's talk about the most emotionally or impactful episodes.
Oh my God, there were so many. Like we touched so many, and people were, I must say, people were very, very brave to come on and talk about these topics as well. Because I think if you're when you start talking about emotionally charged topics, those are the ones that you could potentially be laying yourself open for criticism, for any sort of lashback. It's also kind of opening the door a little bit into your own emotional sphere. So it's always going to be more difficult. And there hasn't been lashback. There hasn't been
No.
commotion because I think our audience is intelligent. So big, huge high five to you all you, the listeners, that kind of like try to see things in context, understand that people have different opinions to you, and that's okay.
But it could have gone in the completely different direction as well.
Yeah, exactly. So, so proud of everyone that came on and talked about like emotionally charged topics. Those are the hard ones, but they're also the really impactful ones. So, I suppose we've had welfare is always a difficult topic to talk about. It's a beautiful topic because there are people doing great work, but it's obviously a horrific topic because they have to do the work that they do. So we had My Lovely Horse Rescue on, and we were very, very thankful for such an open and striking conversation there. It was absolutely fascinating. Obviously, it's difficult to imagine that any of our lovely animals are in welfare situations, but so important to talk about. And I think we'd love to talk about topics like this more in the future, wouldn't we? I think the charities are doing such great work out there. The rescues are doing great work. And I think we'd love to speak more about what's going on in this country.
Yeah, I just looked it up, and I had the feeling we had so many charity topics and all these things, but we didn't actually. It was just 2 charities on so far, and we will definitely increase this number next year. Definitely.
Yeah. And in fairness, it is a lot to do with availability on the side of charities as well. I understand that, like, I'm always stealing an hour of somebody's time at least, and that's not including any preparation that they want to do or anything. So it's very difficult when people are volunteering, when we know that a lot of organizations are already struggling with all of the amount of things that they have to do. So it's totally understood, but absolutely delighted to have more of these topics. And then we talked about some other like really let's say emotionally charged topics as well, like behavioral euthanasia was one. Nobody wants to be in that situation, to have to make that decision. But obviously it's a reality, and it's something that sometimes we have to do as pet owners, make a call on that, whatever that call is. And we have to advocate for our pets and for our animals. So that was an amazing topic. We also, thinking back, we also spoke
breed specific legislation.
Exactly. Anne from Annie Ed was on speaking with us about breed-specific legislation. This, of course, was in and around the bully breed ban that was, a huge shock to Ireland, particularly having seen that the ban hadn't been effective in the UK previously. And it was just a fascinating topic to dig into. And it's, again, one of those topics that, even a 1 hour episode isn't going to cover it all. No. I mean, it's I'm sure you could sit down for a full year and do studies on this and still only be scratching the surface. It's so broad as a topic, but very, very worthwhile coming on and having a chat about. That was so good.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And then there was one I really remember, because I was, and I really admit this now in the podcast, while editing, I was crying. This was emotionally challenging for me. I'm pretty sure you know which episode I mean.
Yeah, I'm thinking this might be the dealing with pet grief, or dealing with pet loss, grieving pet loss episode that we did with Louise. Such a brilliant episode, and Louise does amazing work with Light After Loss, to help us through the more difficult parts of pet guardianship, pet ownership, and I think it's so important, and so many people have come back afterwards and said, that's really helped me. It's not an episode that everyone rushes to listen to in the good times, but when they need it, it can be a really, really valuable one, of course. Actually,
absolutely.
I'd nearly recommend listening to it in the good times, because then at least you kind of have some of the important messages when you might be grieving yourself.
Yeah, it's the only episode which is over an hour long. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that, but that's a nice
the
fact.
only one. Yeah. Okay, coming to something really like completely different topics. We had so many like inspiringly sporty topics, which were great because you could feel the energy in your conversation with people.
Absolutely. And it is inspiring, because I think the whole idea in and around dog sports that are becoming more and more popular in Ireland now. And of course, we're talking about a huge array of sports. We're talking about things like man trailing. We're talking about things like hoopers, agility. We're talking about things like what's a tribe ball is the one with the
newest one.
Think of the name.
Yeah.
So there's loads and loads of variety there, and for dogs with different needs. Some of them have just loads of energy that they need to run off, and some of them might be older and have more sensitive joints and less energy and things like that. And there's something for everyone, which is amazing. But I think the inspiring thing about the fact that even these sports are growing worldwide, but particularly in Ireland, is that people are actually doing things with their dogs. It's not just a dog that's tied up in the backyard, chained up somewhere. They're going out there, they're enjoying their lives, because that's why we get dogs in the first place, isn't it? To live great experiences together. So what better way to do it than through the sport? So those have been fascinating topics, and I love chatting about them.
And it is so interesting that most of these sports a few years ago were completely unknown in Ireland, while other parts of Europe or the world, they are well known since centuries or years at least. I think this is something you could definitely mention. Like Caroline from Dogcercise is very good in bringing all these new interesting things no one knows about, like tripod. Into Ireland.
Absolutely.
Which is totally great. So definitely have a look and listen to these episodes if you're interested in these things. Yeah.
It's a really exciting time in Ireland, or in and around that. And actually, you mentioned we both mentioned the fact that in and around Ireland. So obviously, most of our audience is Irish, but I was looking at the stats earlier, and actually overall, over the full year, we're looking at 88% Irish, which means that there's 12%. Another 12% scattered all around the world. So if you're listening in from somewhere that's not Ireland, you're absolutely more than welcome. We're delighted to have you here. I'd love to know where you even heard about us. So find a way to get in touch.
Oh yeah,
and just let us
comments.
Know. Yeah, if you're listening in from Rio de Janeiro or Paris, I don't mind. I'd love to hear how you even came across us, because it's absolutely brilliant. But I find it also bizarre because A, we speak quite a lot about Irish-specific topics. B, we're in Ireland ourselves. And C, most of our guests are from the Irish dog community. So, like I say, amazing to have you guys listening in. But I'd just love to know how you came across us.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. Yeah, and these are just the ones we know about, right? This is it's really really fascinating. Speaking of fascinating, I mean, we also had let's call it fascinating episodes which were a bit different because they were so important for us as well, because they were opening our eyes or were so meaningful for us.
Yeah, and I suppose anyone that's listening in, you're likely to be quite nerdy like us as well, because otherwise you would have given up listening to this podcast a long, long time ago. So we love a good nerdy, fascinating topic to get our teeth sunk into. So we've had some amazing topics that just blew our socks off. And by the way, we because there's so many topics now at this stage, not everyone is going to jump to mind right now. like every single episode has had its own special
Absolutely.
piece, and that's what I
Absolutely.
meant, that everyone has a story to tell. But I think like very recently we had a brilliant topic we had on where, you know, dogs were being used in a way that are going to help kids to learn, but the you know, it was all about reading dogs, which is kind of taking off here in Cork at the moment, and there's kind of plans for Ireland-wide domination there on that front, and really really helping kids in a really meaningful way, but also thinking about the dogs and how they're you know, how they're coping through and thriving through the experiences. That so absolutely fascinating episode. If people are listening in now and haven't listened to that, go back and listen to that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's really interesting.
It's just what the presence of a dog can do, like what a power this has. It's crazy. Yeah, it's really interesting episode. Yeah.
Was there anything else that stuck out for you?
Absolutely. I mean, come on, like predatory sequence. This for me, it really opened eyes. It was mind blowing because everything else made so much more sense afterwards. Dog behavior, so many things, like dog breeds and what they do and why they do it, and all these things make so much. Even for like with watching Ruby, it made such a big difference for us. Right?
Absolutely. Oh, totally. And this whole topic fascinates me. I know that Darina from Polaris Dog Training brought this topic up for us, and we did a 2-part series almost an entire year ago. Absolutely fascinating. Like, this stuff is mind blowing. And like you say, maybe it doesn't explain absolutely everything about dog behavior, but then again, we're not trainers or behaviorists anyway. But it gave us just such a new understanding of the pet that we have, of the family member that we have, and how their brains function differently to ours, and why. And then, you know, because of this, or a huge part of speaking with Darina and those 2 episodes, we then were in touch with Nicole, who actually brought Simona Muller to Athlone, and we went to that session, learned so much over that weekend, and so thankful to have been there, and then got chatting with Simone, and she also came on to the podcast as well, which was absolutely amazing.
And she was the first international guest on the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that was absolutely amazing as well.
Yeah, definitely. And we also talked about like things fascinating, like the emotional life, like the emotional states of dogs, lives of dogs, I think was the title of the episode, which was mind blowing as well, like having a small peek into their feelings, right?
Absolutely, that was such an enjoyable episode with Susie Walsh as well, and just understanding, you know, what range of emotions could our dogs have? What do we know? What do we suspect that they feel? Really, really interesting part of the field. Yeah.
Coming back to Simone Müller for a second, what was the title of the episode again?
Predation substitute training.
Exactly, predation substitute training. This was also a very special episode in another way, because I'm pretty sure no one of you knows, and I tried to put it in here for a second so you can listen to it. It was the first episode which was translated into a different language, and we don't talk about just captions in a different language under it. I mean, really synchronized.
Bonjour et bienvenue, je m'appelle Kylian. Je dirige un podcast hebdomadaire sur les chiens en langue anglaise qui s'appelle Tuesday Talks with Ruby Reese. Et j'ai eu le plaisir récemment de parler avec Simone Müller à propos de la formation à la substitution de prédation.
It was dubbed in French, yeah.
In French, exactly.
which is absolutely bizarre, and I love it. It's one of my favorite facts about the podcast so far.
It is. So we have an episode completely in French. So, and of course, we had not only dog topics.
We had loads of dog topics, but we had
had
other
loads of
topics too.
Most of them were dog topics, of course, because it is a dog podcast. But we also had other animals on the podcast, we were talking about other animals in the podcast. Name a few. And there were a lot.
We had Vanessa on speaking about dolphins and dogs, their similarities and their major differences. That was absolutely fascinating. I learned more about dolphins there than I could in any documentary.
Yeah. And that they're so close to dogs, like
in certain ways.
In certain ways. Like, I mean, even physically, it's a bit. At least
they're common ancestors. Absolutely. Yeah.
Definitely listen to this episode. It's fascinating.
And then we also had a brilliant episode all about alpacas. So camelid friends from the Andes. Absolutely fascinating. Again, very, very different animal to a dog, but nonetheless, really, really interesting chats we had there. We also, of course, we recently had a sexual diversity episode in the animal kingdom. So we spoke about loads of different parts of the animal kingdom there. I know that we spoke about loads of things from the sea, like wrasse, like clownfish, like seahorses. We also had land animals in there. We had hyenas, we had lions. We had different primates. I think we mentioned bonobos. We had
bonobos. Yeah, I can remember the bonobos.
So there's been quite an array. We also had a full episode with the amazing Niamh Lynch about cats and dogs and
I think this was our first. It was our first episode
on the podcast format. That's true.
In the podcast format. Yeah. The first episode was cats and dogs. Yeah.
Absolutely, and that's really worth listening to. It's so interesting. So yeah, a huge array of animals, but of course, dogs do remain kind of in the center stage for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And working with dogs brings their difficulties with it as well. So let's talk about we had some funny moments. I mean, you will not see and hear them in the podcast episode itself because we edited them out, but bloopers, what happened?
So you've a job every now and then to do a little bit of editing to remove some of the things. So I think behind the scenes, what people don't always see, we all live normal lives, and a lot of the people that come on to the podcast have animals, so particularly dogs. And of course, they don't want to sit quiet for an hour, particularly when you're giving attention to someone on a device. So we've had dogs locking themselves into upstairs rooms, and the guest having to go off for 5 minutes and kind
crying and barking,
rescue the dog. We've had dogs that just decided among themselves to have a little bit of a play fight in the background and nearly knock over ornaments and bits and pieces. We've had people calling to the door. We've had electricians call over to fix things. We've had kids come in and join, which are always a pleasure because it can make it more exciting sometimes in the conversation, especially if there's something to add. And we've also had things like phones falling over, cameras
running out of battery, and all these things. So all these things you will not notice, but they were there, and it is funny. And perhaps in the future we will make a one of these
bloopers episode.
Exactly. Perhaps we will do something like this. So what changed? What does the podcast change for you and for our business? What is your opinion about this? I mean, it changed a lot in our life. This is definitely for sure.
Well, I suppose it changed a lot about our understanding. I mean, I feel like we've got now have a real deep understanding about dogs and the dog community and how it works. I don't think that that we're going to say that we're behaviorists or trainers or vets or any of those amazing things. You all do a great job of those different professions, but I think we've put together a really, really good picture. And I think if anyone goes back and listens to a big chunk of the episodes that we've recorded and put online, I mean, there's a wealth of information that our guests have brought on, and I think that overarching information and how things link together just is a game changer really for anyone that lives with animals, that has pets, that's a guardian of animals. It's amazing.
At least it was for us, so I presume it will be for everyone else as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And we mentioned it a little bit. It is a lot of work as well. And I know this is something you normally wouldn't talk about because you want to, everything seems easy and funny and all these things, but it is a lot of work. And I think a birthday episode like this is the right place to talk about this a little bit.
Yeah, so I suppose people don't always understand the amount of effort that goes into putting together a podcast episode. It's incredibly time consuming just finding, because anyone that we want to speak to are usually very, very busy professionals that also have their family lives, animal lives, etc. So trying to slot in times and then deal with changes along the way, scheduling can take quite a lot of time. Preparing questions can take quite a lot of time. To get to a point where I can ask the really basic questions, I often put in a bit of research myself into the topic so that I can ask those basic questions so that we can all kind of start from a level playing field. And I think then even in the podcast episodes themselves, it takes quite a long time doing a recording and, chatting beforehand. I always like to particularly around the more difficult topics, make our guests feel comfortable, make sure it's okay to ask them specific areas of the topic, because the last thing we want to do is put someone out on a limb or get them talking or force someone to talk about something they don't want to. At the end of the day, we're not tabloid journalists here. We're not trying to catch anyone out. We're so appreciative of people coming on and sharing their knowledge with us. So there's quite a bit of work. And that's even before you get to editing. So then that's over to your part of it all. And there's quite a lot there as well. So I think we were talking earlier and saying like 4 hours is
between us easy,
between us per episode. 4 hours of a commitment is like easily covered, bare minimum. I think that's like the quickest way of putting together an episode. So
this is when everything is really running smoothly.
Yeah, exactly. So like there's a lot goes into all of these episodes, and we're so privileged to have this. But I think it's also important to bring up a little change that we have coming up. So because it's eating
now.
Yeah, absolutely. So it eats into a lot of our time, a time that we don't have at the moment. We will absolutely be keeping the podcast, but we have a decision to make now, and it's either after so many episodes, and we've built up an amazing bank of episodes, do we A, focus on keeping the quality that we already have, or B, do we keep the quantity? So bringing out an episode every week is not going to be possible for the next while. We will be but it's not going to have too much of a wait, because we will keep going every second week. Then we'll bring out a new episode. And I think if anyone is upset by that, number one, let us know. But number two, consider going back and listening to the other 51 episodes, because there's loads and loads there. And even if you've listened to it a year ago, you've probably forgotten half the details anyway. So, and we'll keep bringing out really interesting episodes for you. And hopefully we'll find more time again in the future to come back even to weekly. But, after 52 episodes, I think it's time to just give ourselves a little bit more time for the scheduling and the rest of it.
And it is really to keep the quality up. And this is the main reason, because there's no point in doing it without having good quality topics and guests and conversations. That's it. Yeah.
Even if I don't have time to sit down and put together like logical questions, it may not lead to an amazing episode, you know. So I think it's really worthwhile just setting aside the right time for each episode. So we're really looking forward. And by the way, just so people understand, like, we already have amazing recording set up for the next couple of weeks. So it's not that that we've any concerns in that sense. No. It's just it's more forward looking, really, particularly with all of our work that's going on with dognutrition.ie and all of our consultations there. We want to be fair to everyone with their time. So we'll be coming every second week now.
Yeah, great. And we talked about everything we wanted to talk about in our birthday episode. Despite one thing, and I think this has to be a big, big thank you. And not only to our listeners, which are listening to this podcast every week or binge listening it over time, also to our guests, like every single one of them. Without them, the whole podcast wouldn't be possible.
Absolutely. Right? And I think this is a brilliant time to thank you all for liking, subscribing, and doing all that fun things for the podcast all the way along. If you haven't done it until now, the birthday episode is the time to give us a present. Give us that 5-star review, whatever it is, wherever you listen to these podcasts. And on top of that, I also wanted to thank Ruby Reese and dognutrition.ie, not for sponsoring this in a monetary sense, but for sponsoring with our time through all of these episodes and into the future episodes, because time is limited, and we're so happy to be able to invest our enthusiasm into this podcast going forward as well.
Yeah, and I'm speaking, I think, from like. Everyone thinks this, and I am just saying it now. Thank you, Killian, for doing this, being such a great host, because without the host, there wouldn't be a podcast as well. It is you who is the soul of the podcast. So thank you very much for this.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you as well for editing and all the support and everything. So that's it. That's a wrap.
We thanked ourselves as well. Wonderful. What leaves me to say, and I will finish this one. I started this podcast, so I will finish it as well. If you want to know more about us, about Ruby Reese or dognutrition.ie, you will find all the informations in the show notes. And I hope you're listening in 2 weeks to another Tuesday Talks with Ruby Reese.